Let's start with a single, powerful idea. Guilt is the lock, empathy is the key. You know, that one sentence, it's pretty much the entire blueprint for one of the most clever and, honestly, most damaging forms of psychological control out there. So today, we are doing a full strategic breakdown of guilt manipulation. We're not just going to talk about feelings here. We are going to dismantle a system, piece by piece. We're going to see not just how it works, but why it works so well, even against really strong, smart people. This is about seeing the architecture behind the emotion.
Let's really zero in on that phrase, that paradox. It tells you everything you need to know. It shows you the hidden cost of having a good conscience. See, a manipulator isn't really looking for your weaknesses or your flaws. Nope. They're actually targeting your greatest strength, that ability you have to feel for other people, your empathy, your sense of what's right. And then they expertly flip it. They turn it into a weapon that makes you sacrifice yourself. This is exactly how you end up in that maddening, confusing situation where you feel like you have to apologize for their bad behavior.
All right, so let's start by isolating the threat itself. We'll call it the empathy trap. Now, this isn't some big dramatic event. It's more about defining that confusing internal feeling you get that tells you you're caught in this specific kind of psychological web. It's a feeling a lot of us recognize immediately, but we just can't put a name to it. It's like this moral vertigo, where you're suddenly not sure which way is up.
And the dead giveaway, the number one symptom that something is seriously wrong, is right here. It's that bizarre, disorienting moment when you find yourself apologizing for setting a totally reasonable boundary. I mean, think about it. Have you ever said you needed a quiet night to yourself and suddenly you're apologizing for being selfish? Or maybe you made a career move that was great for you and somehow you end up apologizing for abandoning them. See what's happening? You're not saying sorry for something you did wrong. You're apologizing for how they chose to feel about it. And that right there is the entry point to the whole trap. So what's the mechanism that makes this whole thing possible? It's a tactic called moral inversion. This is the strategic move where your own conscience gets turned into a weapon against you. The manipulator takes something you did that was perfectly justified, like saying no or protecting your time, and they brilliantly reframe it as a cruel, selfish, hurtful act. And just like that, you're no longer the person setting a healthy boundary. You are now the person who is causing them pain. They've just made you responsible for their entire emotional state. And the result of living under this kind of constant moral inversion? Well, it's not just a few bad conversations. It's a full-on psychological siege. It becomes your new normal. It creates this crippling, low-grade guilt that just follows you everywhere. And that leads to this constant state of confusion, this fog where you can't even tell what's reasonable anymore. And from that confusion comes a deep, deep decision paralysis. You become terrified of making any choice, because what if it's the wrong one? What if it makes you a bad person? That fear of being morally condemned becomes this invisible electric fence that keeps you trapped.
But here's the thing. This isn't just random emotional chaos. This is not just somebody having a bad day. It is a system. It's a predictable psychological machine, and it's built for one thing and one thing only: compliance. So now, let's pop the hood and deconstruct this engine. Let's see exactly how it runs. We're moving from the feeling of it to the framework behind it.
So this engine, it runs on a ruthlessly efficient four-step cycle: the guilt, compliance, feedback loop. First, distress is deployed. The manipulator shows you they are sad or angry or deeply disappointed, always in direct response to a boundary you set. Second, your guilt is activated. Because of that moral inversion we talked about, your empathy immediately kicks in and you think, oh no, I've made them feel bad. Third, to escape the awful pain of that guilt, your compliance is secured. You give in. You break your own rule. And finally, and this is the key part, relief is granted. The second you comply, poof, their distress just vanishes. They're happy again. They forgive you. That sudden wave of relief is the reward. It's the powerful reinforcement that trains you to give in faster and faster every time the loop starts again.
So what's the end game? What happens when this feedback loop runs over and over and over? You get a structure of control we call emotional gatekeeping. Basically, the manipulator sets themselves up as the one and only authority on whether the relationship is okay, and even more deviously, on whether you are a good person. The only way you get to feel like a good person is if they are happy with you. They control the peace. They control how you see yourself. They become the gatekeeper to your own conscience, and they can grant or deny access based on how well you comply.
Okay, so we've seen the trap and we've seen the engine. We get the what and the how. But the real power here, the real question, is why. Why is this psychological attack so incredibly effective? Why do smart, capable, compassionate people fall for it all the time? To answer that, we have to look at the deep psychological buttons that are being pushed.
Here it is. This is the core leverage point. The whole system works because for most of us who have a conscience, the internal pain of an identity threat is way, way worse than any external consequence. Let me make that real for you. Imagine you have to choose. You either cancel plans with a friend to take a mental health day you desperately need, or you go. The external consequence of canceling is what? Maybe an awkward conversation? But the identity threat they could use is something like, wow, I guess I can't count on you. You're not the loyal friend I thought you were. And bam, suddenly the fear of seeing yourself as a selfish, disloyal, bad person becomes this huge existential threat. It's a deep, primal shame. And compared to that feeling, the cost of just giving in and going seems tiny. They're not attacking your logic, they're attacking your very identity.
And while that's happening, the manipulator is also deliberately cranking up your cognitive load. All that intense emotional pressure, the sadness, the accusations, the moral judgment, it's all designed to overwhelm your rational brain. It's like flooding your circuits with so much emotional static that you can't think clearly. You can't analyze the situation or see the moral inversion for the trick that it is. And when you're in that state of total overload, giving in isn't a rational choice. It's just an impulse. It's you grabbing for the fastest, easiest way to make the pain stop.
Okay, we've taken apart the problem, we've looked at the system, and we understand the psychology. Now we shift gears. We talk solution. And look, this is not about hoping the other person will change. This is the tactical phase. How do you actually neutralize this engine? The answer is a clear, actionable procedure. We call it the decoupling protocol. This is all about taking back sovereign control over your own mind.
The entire protocol, the whole thing, kicks off the moment you recognize one very specific feeling. This is your internal alarm system. The second you feel that nagging sense of moral obligation, that you need to apologize for something that you know deep down was a perfectly reasonable and justified action, that feeling is the signal. That little twinge of unjustified guilt is the telltale sign that the moral inversion tactic is being used on you. Learning to trust that signal over their big emotional display is the first, and honestly, the most important step to getting free.
So once you recognize that signal, you execute a very precise 3-step protocol. Step 1 is just awareness. You name that feeling. There's that unjustified guilt again. Step 2 is about taking back your ground. You deploy a specific verbal tool called the responsibility transfer script. And step 3 is about securing that ground. You use something called a verification query to get rid of all the vagueness and ambiguity that these manipulators just love to hide in.
This script right here, this is your primary weapon. Let's break down why it's so powerful. I can see you are upset. That first part shows you hear them. It validates their emotion without you taking any of the blame. It's empathy, not guilt. But your feelings are yours to manage. This is the game-changing move. You are transferring ownership of that emotion right back to them. You are calmly and clearly rejecting the entire idea of moral inversion. And then, my decision stands. This last part reaffirms your boundary with this calm finality. It's precise, it's non-negotiable, and it completely short-circuits their entire system.
Now, after you use that script, they might try to fall back on vague accusations, right? You just don't care about me. That's when you counter with the verification query. What specific outcome were you expecting? This is a tactical tool that forces them to be clear. It destroys their advantage of ambiguity because it makes them say the unreasonable thing they want out loud. You're forcing them to expose the game they're playing, both to you and, a lot of the time, to themselves.
So when you boil it all down, here's the core strategic insight. The entire system of guilt manipulation absolutely depends on creating emotional chaos, emotional volatility inside of you. That chaos they manufacture is your vulnerability. So it stands to reason that the ultimate countermeasure, the most valuable power resource you could possibly have in any interaction like this, is your own internal stability. By simply refusing to let their emotional state dictate your emotional state, you take all your power back, and you break the cycle for good. That is what real stability in the face of pressure actually feels like.